Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Fundraising BIDness Talk. Hope everybody is doing fantastic. Today, I am Patrick Cyber. I'm the owner and primary auctioneer for G Events, an event management company based out of Beaverton, Oregon, where we focus on fundraising golf tournaments and also focus on charity auctions. And we have had a lot of fun over the last 15 months or so as we have embraced this new environment of virtual events. And every time we get together, it seems like there is something new to share with you in this world of virtual events. And this week we've been busy. In fact, I missed broadcasting last week, and my apologies if anybody tried to tune in and I wasn't there. But we've been doing a lot of events, and that's wonderful. It's fantastic. But I had a schedule conflict last week, and that's why we didn't make it on the air last week with an episode. But this week, I want to share with you. I listen to clients a lot and try to understand and put myself in their shoes as to what they're going through as a nonprofit organization in this pandemic environment, and try to understand what's important to them, which I think is always the same thing when it comes to their special events, is that they do them to raise money. And although the climate and the environment has been challenging, since March of 2020, we've had tremendous success. And I find that those organizations who embrace the virtual world have done ridiculously well. As a whole, there's obviously a couple of groups that have been challenged for whatever reason, but I would have to say it's not the format. The format has proven time and time again that it is incredibly successful. But what I want to talk to you about today is an evolution of that format. What we've done at G Events over the last month, let's say, is something we've been thinking about since early last fall and just hadn't had the opportunity to actually execute it. And over the last few weeks, we've executed, I want to say at least four of them. And we have one more. And that is, we've had the most success in this environment utilizing a studio, where I head to a studio. I prefer the AV department. They do phenomenal work at the AV department. Todd Campbell, and Brian Lehman, and John Hasty, and the whole guys over there, Ryan Brothers, running their live streaming department. All my buddies, John Wiles and Sean Norris and Andy Dowsett, and all those guys, they do a phenomenal job. They've had to have done over 200 and some odd of these events since we did our first one back in March last year, on March 11th. And they've really evolved. They've done great things. They're operating out of multiple studios now, and it's fabulous, right? In fact, I'll be there tonight doing an event for the Sherwood Police Foundation. But it's not free, okay? And it costs money to do that. And a lot of these organizations that I work with have been extremely hesitant. We can talk, and the list is long, of the reduced expenses that are associated with virtual events. We're no longer having to order catering. We're no longer ordering decorations. We're not paying necessarily for a venue, although if we're using a studio, we're paying for a venue. But there's a lot of things that go down in the cost category. At the same time, most organizations lose some revenue also, because their revenue is now all of a sudden they're not selling tickets, they're not selling tables. Now, I find in the Northwest that most organizations really do not cover their hard cost with their ticket revenue, but regardless, that's a big chunk of change in their budget, and they tend to think that that's covering their hard cost, right? So I also think that it takes a lot of manpower, takes a lot of effort, and the other thing I'm sensitive to, especially as we move forward into this new hybrid environment, is that I think I've always been of the mindset that when a person buys a ticket to go to a fundraising event, that they perceive that they have made a donation to that organization. Now, that, as we all know, is not accurate in the truest sense, but from the consumer standpoint and that donor standpoint, that is dollars that they have given to that organization. Now, 100% of those dollars might be eaten up by the venue cost, the catering cost, the beverage cost, the decorations, the, whatever it is. Okay. But they perceive that they have made that purchase and that purchase is a donation to the group. So, where am I going with that? Is that in this new world, we want to reduce those expenses overall. And maybe we do get back into a ticket sales environment at some point, but I hope it's not overly fast, right? Because I think there's a better solution. That being said, the point of my talk today is that we have embraced a tool, which we're actually using right now to broadcast, called StreamYard. And StreamYard is a phenomenal utility. It's a web-based software, and we have been overwhelmed with how it has helped us enter the live streaming world. As I often say, back in March a year ago, I didn't know if live stream was one word or two. I'm not sure if it is one or the other today, but I sure do say it a lot, and I sure do it a lot, right? And one of the biggest challenges, and the reason that I went to the studio immediately with my virtual events, was because I know what I don't know. And I do not know the tech side of the world. And so I've always felt like, don't call your attorney with an accounting question, right? And so I, as much as I feel like I'm well versed in the auction method for fundraising events, I knew that I was not well versed in audio, visual, and tech issues, and I definitely didn't know how to live stream. So today, fast forward, I sit in front of 3 box lights and 3 monitors and 2 computers all day, and I live stream, I don't know, 3 or 4 times a week, it seems like now, on a regular basis. So anyhow, one of the ways that I've been able to do that is through StreamYard, and StreamYard is phenomenal in that it is, in essence, the production side of the show, right? So you don't stream to StreamYard, you stream through StreamYard to whatever your platform might be. And what's powerful about it is that you can also stream to multiple platforms simultaneously. So right now I'm streaming through StreamYard to my G Events Facebook page, my G Events YouTube account, and my G Events Twitter account, right? So any of my audience that's in any of those platforms can see my broadcast in real time, and then the recording will also reside on there. Now, one of the things that I liked about it is that it gave us a lot of autonomy. Now, it is not near as robust, and I want to be ultra clear. It is not near as robust as what I'm going to do tonight at the AV department, where John and Sean are going to, have a studio set up with us with a stage and lighting and multiple cameras, and all the images are going to go into vMix, and they're going to mix the show, and they're going to make the audio perfect between me and Chief Growth, and they're going to lay in all the graphics, and they're going to do all these incredible things, right? This, StreamYard is phenomenal. It's not the same as using Professional Studio. So I want to make sure I'm really clear on that. At the same time, I think it fits the budget of a large number of our nonprofit organizations. And at the end of the day, I believe that there is a baseline of production that will be acceptable to your donors. And I think that that baseline is maybe lower than we initially thought. At the same time, it needs to be stable and it needs to be solid. And they need to know when they tune into your show that they're going to hear you and see you. And when you play videos, that they're going to be able to see them and hear them, and they're not going to buffer and they're not going to stutter and all of those different things. Now, StreamYard does that, and that's why we like StreamYard versus me just streaming directly on Facebook Live or streaming directly on YouTube. I like to use StreamYard because we can go to those multiple platforms. So, and at the end of the day, I think our fundraising is a result of the messaging and the content of the program and communicating the mission of the nonprofit, and quite honestly, asking people to support that nonprofit so that it can further its mission. So I see a fair number of nonprofits who have spent a significant amount of money, in my mind, a very significant amount of money on production of their live stream or their virtual event. And if that works for them and their constituents, fantastic. I question if they knew what that nonprofit had to lay out to get the fancy videos and the fancy studio and the fancy production and all the different things that went into it, that I question whether those donors would feel as good about it, that, or would agree with it, or if they would tell us that, hey, I would have supported you had you just put up a show that I could have seen and heard. And you know, I equate it to, I would use the analogy of hard invitations going to an event, right? I think we as consumers or recipients, guests of an event, we have an expectation that if we're getting invited to a business function and they send out a hard copy invitation, that it is very professional and that it is well put together and well thought out, and it's on really quality paper or cardboard, you know, whatever, cardstock, whatever it would be, and it's glossy and it's got plenty of colors in it and it's really cool because that represents the brand of that company. Okay. And so, you know, when somebody invests in that, they're investing in their brand, and that makes sense to me. When I think about a nonprofit inviting people to come to an event and, you know, make donations, I think that receiving a invitation that might cost $4, $5, $10 to print, and they know you're sending out hundreds of them, that may not be the best use of your money. Okay. So I think of it the same way in the production of these virtual events. I think you can overdo it, and I would question whether it's worth it or not. So I'm going to tell you at all times, I think it is well worth the investment to use a professional studio like the AV department all day long. It is as turnkey as possible. There are zero questions and concerns. At the same time, if an organization doesn't have those type of dollars, doesn't bring in those dollars and can justify it, then I would present that StreamYard, and doing the event on StreamYard, would be an economical solution, right? And so I wanted to share with you that that is the way that we produced a couple events here. Well, we've done 4 of them this way, and we're on our way to our 5th one next week or the week after. And they have been ridiculously successful. The first one doubled their goal financially, which is impressive. The next one raised twice as much as what they had raised at their last gathering event. So if you went back to 2018, the last time the group was able to gather in a ballroom and have their function, they doubled that number. Okay. So that's phenomenal, right? And then the next week, the group did very, very well. The following week, we did another one, and that group raised the most gross dollars that they had raised from that event, whether it was in gathering. A year ago, they tried to do an online auction without a live stream, but they just tried an online auction. But this year's event, going virtual, exceeded what they'd ever done in their live event, in their gathering event. So hence the reason for my comments a moment ago that I'm not convinced. I think there's a baseline of production quality, and it needs to be rock solid. It needs to be stable. It needs to be all these things, right? But it doesn't need to be over the top. And so really who I'm talking to today is those nonprofits that are out there that are wondering, what is it really going to cost for me to put on this virtual event? I don't know if my audience is going to respond to it. And my point to you is explore all your options. We've done virtual events in studios. Obviously, we've done virtual events on Zoom. Was not a huge fan of the Zoom environment, just because I know what it's like to do it in a studio. I know what the production quality is like. The person who did the Zoom far exceeded my expectations, incredibly far exceeded my expectations. And I was extremely pleased with the results, right? Extremely pleased with our results, because we raised a ridiculous amount of money relative to what the group had done before. And hey, we got our good friend Lindsay Zogas is in the house. Totally agree with you on StreamYard was perfect for our event. Yeah, Lindsay is a good friend, talented graphic artist, and she together we conceived this event. She had the brainchild, and then we brought it to fruition with her incredible graphic help and everything else, and organizing for St. Rose recently. It was a stand up for St. Rose event. It was a comedy themed event. Our good friend Alex Falcone, Portland's Funniest Man from 2018, now living in Los Angeles, recently on the Colbert Show. Alex was our headliner, but we used StreamYard for that. And what was great about that, thanks for chiming in, by the way, Lindsay. What was great about that is that Alex was in Los Angeles, right? And he had to been at the gathering event. We would have had to fly him up. He would have had to stay overnight. He would have done, the expense, right? And what's beautiful about StreamYard is, hey, I don't care where you're at. You got an internet connection, I can put you in the show, right? In fact, last week, I'm going to tell you a funny story. Last week we were doing an event, and there were some house parties, right? Now I don't want to digress and go down the path of whether house parties are a good idea in this environment today or not. I'm not going to make a statement on that. But what I will tell you is that we had a house party. We had several house parties going on for this group. And it turned out that we were on a live auction package, and the bidding was hot and heavy, okay, as I like to say. And it came to our attention through the MC, who was in a different location, that the two people bidding were at the same house party, okay? And we happen to know a third person at that house party. And so live on the move, literally, how would I say this? On the roll, whatever it was, I sent a link to the StreamYard studio to the person that we knew that was at the house party. They used their cell phone to connect to StreamYard, and we brought the house party in live into the show. And it was a blast. But how we were able to do that on the fly is just beyond me. That was fabulous. I think about 15 months ago, if I had thought that was possible, I probably would have had a heart attack because I would not have been able to conceive that was possible. And yet we did it last week, and it was smooth as silk. And that's the flexibility that we have in StreamYard that I really love. The other thing that I found that I particularly like in StreamYard is the ability for me to be here in my home studio and for me to monitor the auction software. And then I have also started incorporating the chat or comment features into these live streams. Now, early on, I was, I'm going to say, fairly adamant that I did not see the value in the chat window. Okay. And I want to take a step back and share with you a little bit about what my logic was on that. I felt like to accomplish our fundraising goals, we ideally would have folks with two devices, that we would have people sitting on their couch watching their smart television with the live stream on it. And then the second device would be their phone, and that would be their bid paddle, right? They would have whatever the interface was to the auction software, which I'm always going to tell you, Octria has a phenomenal app. It is, without a question, in my opinion, a phenomenal interface for these types of events. And anyhow, so my goal was that, you know, people would be on their couch, their easy chair, their recliner, they're watching the broadcast, watching the live stream on their smart television, and they've got their bid paddle in their hand, which is their cell phone. And I kept thinking to myself, now, if I wanted them to chat also, how would that work? Do they need a third device? Or are we going to incorporate the chat into the smart TV window? Or are they going to be switching off the app to do it on their phone? And I struggled with that, right? Because in my mind, that was almost a third device. And what I also couldn't figure out was how chat was going to raise any more money. Because I watched several, and this is I do this a lot, folks. I watch a lot of virtual events. And that's the beauty, right? It used to be that, you know, fundraising galas were on Saturday night for the most part. And if I was working, I couldn't very well see what happened at another ballroom across town or what another auctioneer was doing. But in this live stream world, I can watch everybody's event because most of them reside on the internet after the fact. So whether I watch them live or I watch them after the fact, it's been incredibly powerful for my learning curve and steepened that curve dramatically, being able to watch other people, auctioneers, and some groups who choose to not have an auctioneer involved, right? Which I don't necessarily agree with. If they have the right auctioneer, I think the auctioneer will be an incredible investment for the organization. At the same time, there are some auctioneers, no different than any other profession, that I don't, you know, maybe haven't embraced this environment, maybe are not as hands-on as some, like myself, and maybe it's not the right thing for them, but you learn a lot. So when I watched these events that were utilizing the chat, although I saw a lot of activity, I didn't see a lot of motivational speak for people to fundraise, right? I didn't, you know, I wasn't sure that the auctioneer or the fundraising host or the people on the broadcast were actually engaging in those people from a let's raise more money concept. So I wasn't a big fan. Now, when I started using StreamYard for some of these events in the last few weeks, I started incorporating the chat. And the main reason I did was because all these events were on the Octria platform. And what I loved about the Octria platform was that I could embed the chat window and I can position it wherever I want, right? So Octria provides a platform that in essence you could use one device if you wanted to, or you can have multiple devices, either way. But what I really liked is that how, when I look at it in the mobile platform, that I could position that chat window right under where people needed to bid, or, you know, right where the action was. So I felt like they could accomplish this without necessarily having to have a third device. The other thing that I was adamant about was that as the auctioneer, I needed to engage these people. When I, you know, and you say, well, how do you engage them? Well, one of the ways was as I talked to them, you know, and I encouraged them in the chat to give a virtual round of applause. Let's, you know, shout out some show some appreciation to this individual or family who just made a $10,000 donation, and I think that's cool when you see people saying, hey, way to go, Jones family, way to go, Joneses, yay, the Joneses are great. I think those people as donors, if they're the Joneses, feel pretty appreciated. And I think there are also people sitting on their couch watching the show that think like, gosh, I want that. Maybe I should donate, right? And so, and I think it also, I've said all along, incorporating the live auction into the broadcast was crucial, because I guarantee when we're talking to people as auctioneers that we're going to raise more money in those live auction packages than they would raise without an auctioneer doing it if it was just purely online, right? And I can point to some of my own clients who have made the choice to do an online auction only and not incorporate a live stream event, and they have quite honestly struggled with the net results of what they were doing, and I think that's one of the reasons. So when we use the chat in that live auction component, and we can encourage people, hey, give them a little encouragement. The Joneses need a little help raising that paddle again. I think it's pretty powerful what they accomplish, and so I really liked it. But for me as the auctioneer, I'm not so sure. I'm going to be in the studio tonight. We do have the chat window open on this event tonight. I have someone monitoring it, which is traditionally the way that we do that when we're in a studio environment. A couple of weeks ago, I did a high school, has a large community. We had 3 people sitting in a separate area of the studio where they were interacting with the people in the chat. And there's a perfect example. I don't know that it raised us any more money, right? But when I'm doing a StreamYard event and I can see them, just like I did with Lindsay, where I brought Lindsay into the program, right? What's cool is that StreamYard automatically grabs her Facebook avatar, it automatically grabs her name, and then it takes whatever she typed into the comment box and puts it right there on the screen. And for me, I can control that, right? So I don't have to worry about somebody else putting those comments in there. Maybe it's a comment that I don't think is going to help with the fundraising, would probably be the case. Sometimes there's a comment that's inappropriate. So you have 100% control over which comments you put on the screen, which I think is important. And so that's I think StreamYard's an incredible tool. I really, really encourage my viewers out there to take a look check it out. They've got a free account, and you can check it out at StreamYard.com. Does some great, incredible things. The other thing that I wanted to chat about with respect to StreamYard is that I did have a crutch, okay? Because I'm so sensitive to these being successful for my clients that I know that, I always picture that monkey, right, with the cymbals and the drum on the back and the bells on their feet, and they're that when I'm doing a StreamYard, right? So when I started thinking about incorporating it and doing it for a virtual fundraising event, I wanted to have someone who I trusted tremendously be involved in that. And my first call was to Anka Treefan at Treefan Events, and she does a fabulous job of remote production. So Anka is all the way over in Meridian, Idaho, but she was my remote producer. So if you can imagine that I was sitting in my home studio where I'm at right now, my other talent, depending on which show, was in their home or their office. We brought in people. We brought in Alex from Los Angeles, different remote situations. Everybody was remote. Nobody was in the same room. And Anka was the one that was controlling all the volume, controlling all the, making sure that we were playing videos when we were, it all followed the run of show. She clicked all that on and turned it off and did a fabulous job. Now, you know, Anka does a great job. I'm also going to mention another person that does a phenomenal job, and I got to work with her last week, and she does a really good job. And so these would be my first two calls. In this case, Mary Davidson, she's up in the Seattle area. She has a company called EP Events, and she does a phenomenal job also, and is very capable of being a remote producer for these types of events. But Anka and I have worked together in events for many years and very closely over the last 15 months. So she was my first call when we started working on this concept together, and it's been positive. So I want to let you know that if you want to check out any of these events that we did, I didn't want to bore you with share screening and all screen sharing and all that, but if you we have a Vimeo page, Vimeo channel for G events, and we have a showcase on there of virtual fundraising events. You can see all of the, or I think almost all of the virtual events that we've done here in the last 15 months are right there on that showcase. I urge you to take a look at some of the ones we just did here recently, whether it was for the benefit or for Beaverton High School fundraising, or their success fund. They call their event the benefit. St. Rose, Stand Up for St. Rose was a great one. We did an event for Springwater Environmental Charter School over in Southeast, out in Clackamas area, and we did one for Raleigh Hills. All those events were on StreamYard. They're on there on that channel. In that showcase, you'll also see a lot of the events that we've done in studio, whether it's the Winding Golf Ball or the Xinghua Gala for Hope Chinese Charter. Any of those events, take a look and check it out, and let me know what you think. Okay. Hey folks, I'm going to cut it short today. I've got another call, but I wanted to jump on and talk to you a little bit about using StreamYard. I think it is an incredible tool, incredible way to help your events. I want to remind you that we're on every Wednesday. I promise I will be back next Wednesday. I know I stiffed you last week, but that was my first time in 2021 that I missed doing the show, and I really hated missing it, but I was tied up, which is a good thing. Okay. Catch us tonight. We're going to be with the Sherwood Police Foundation, as a phenomenal group of folks that we feel very, very strongly about, our men and women in blue, and Sherwood community does a great job and do some phenomenal stuff. And we're going to be helping their foundation. The foundation provides wellness and provides some equipment that wouldn't otherwise be covered by the budgets with the Sherwood Police Department. And some pretty emotional stories coming out of there. Pretty good stuff. So encourage you, please feel free at any time. You can always, we have all of our fundraising business talks are on our Vimeo channel also. There's actually a channel just for it with, if you search Fundraising BIDness Talk on Vimeo, you'll see the whole thing. Want to thank again Lindsay, our good buddy Lindsay, chiming in today. Anybody need any help with designing the theme of their event, I'm going to encourage you highly reach out to Lindsay. Drop me a line. I'll get you in touch with her. She does a phenomenal job in graphic design, but more than just design work, she has a vision that is phenomenal. And if you've got an idea, she will make your idea a reality. So thanks for tuning in, Linz. Great to see you. Appreciate everybody. And you folks have a terrific day. I want to always remind you, as always, it does not matter where you start the bidding. It's where you finish. Have a great day, everybody.